The first thing I want to say is thanks for everybody. Thanks everybody for coming. This is kind of the first in our experiment to make everything that we're doing much more open and collaborative with the full community. And so we'll be holding town halls. Our goal is every 2 weeks and sharing updates and then opening up discussion. I think there's a lot of room, while we're small, to make these meetings pretty comprehensive. So during the AMA, feel free to bring questions about where we're going, questions about your own projects, and anything in between. And then kind of as this grows, probably we'll have to break that into different opportunities for discussions outside of the town hall too. But I think this can be pretty fun and loose right now. Brian just shared an agenda down in the Community Stewards channel. So if you want to follow along what we're talking about today, you can do that there, and we'll drop any links that we reference in there as well as sort of a long-term record, so you can always come back here. As far as venue goes, this is our first experiment with the stage. I think maybe in the future there might be a need to do things like screen sharing. So possibly we may experiment with other places or other ways of doing this, whether that's just the shared channel or maybe we have multiple streams going on for different kinds of content. We'll see. But for now, I think this is pretty fun, so we'll try it. So first thing I want to jump into are just general updates for Tableland. And then I'm going to hand it off. I'll kind of go over the agenda for the rest and hand it off to some people to speak to specific updates and what to look out for. So I think the big one is that in that push for openness, we've been building out the Tableland roadmap. I know a lot of you are here because you've talked to us and you kind of understand where we're going, but there's not much about where Tableland is going next or how we're getting to mainnet. And so we have that full roadmap built out. We're kind of going through some final reviews internally and figuring out the right ways to communicate different pieces of it. But that should be coming in the next town hall. So in 2 weeks. Sorry, I think in the agenda that's written as next week, but I think that's in 2 weeks. So look out for that. We'll probably have the content out beforehand, and then we'll use the next town hall to really dig into some of it and give context, and then open up the AMA again to discuss that. Other general updates, we're going through a second round of grant and bounty creation, and so we're really looking for input from people from the community about what they're building and how we can help contribute to funding or get resources for them for what they're building. So if you have any ideas for bounties you'd like to see, or the types of bounties, or even places that you'd like us to post bounties, definitely call those to our attention, and we can get that woven into this next round of grants and bounties, and try to support all of you. Next thing I just wanted to highlight are some new events. We're going to go over kind of all the event opportunities a little bit later, but the one big one I wanted to call out is that we're going to NFT NYC at the end of June. I think it's like June 21st or something like that. 21st, I think, is the kickoff day, but right around then. We are actually going to try to make this a pretty big event for us. We should have a lot of major pieces of Tableland to share with the community and some early partners and everything that we want to celebrate. So far we have 2 speakers. I'm giving a talk, and Sander's giving a talk. We have 4 people going. Myself, Sander, obviously, Carson and Alan are also confirmed to go right now. And we're starting to look to host a little Tableland gathering, whether that's solo and just some drinks at a bar with anybody that's there in town, or we're also looking to maybe partner with some other similar projects to do something together. So hopefully we can find something like that. If you're going to be in NYC during that week, let us know, and we'd love to invite you to that. And if it doesn't happen for some reason, we should definitely meet up anyway. NFT NYC. And next thing, just to top of your mind, we are hiring. We have 4 open positions, 1 for developer relations, 1 for backend engineering, 1 for blockchain engineering, and 1 for full stack engineering. Those are all in action. We're interviewing currently. You can find a link to the job postings in the agenda. But we'd love to hear from you if that's you, or please help us spread the word. Hiring is tough when you're a small startup, and having people discover you is always challenging. So if you know great people that you think would have fun working on this stuff, please let them know about these posts. I wanted to call out just a couple asks for people in the community. One, you're going to hear in a moment some of the contributions from the community around content, and that's been amazing. And we would love your help creating more content and creating more information about how you're thinking about Tableland and how you think about metadata for NFTs and in Web3, and this idea of relational tables and what you're thinking to build and pain points you have. So any kind of tweets or blog posts or even reviews of your own projects and how you're using it would be amazing, and we'd love to either help collaborate or spread those if you have ideas. Again, bounty needs, so please let us know if you have funding ideas in mind that we could get posted. And then obviously learning needs. So Tableland's pretty early. We have the basic content up in our docs, so you can find how to build things, but there's just a ton more that you could be building that we haven't documented yet. So if there are things you'd like to learn how to do with Tableland and want guidance there, definitely flag those for us so we can build some work around creating tutorials or content to show how to do specific things with Tableland. So any of those, just engage us over in that community stewards channel, and we can figure out what to do and how to do it. So that's it for updates. A bit on the agenda of more broken out updates. We're going to go over some community updates, some updates on Tableland partnerships, some updates on the Tableland network development, and then some updates on the Tableland organization. And then we'll open it up for AMA. So I'm just going to hand this off to each sort of person for each of these sections, and they can work through the main things. So first up is community updates. Carson, could you lead that one for us?
Yeah, you bet. Thanks, Andrew. This is Carson here. So thanks for the introduction. I'm going to talk a little bit about, this community that we're chatting with right now, and some of the updates that are happening here. And I'm going to first introduce, we've got a couple of new sort of faces in the Tableland Discord that are really helping us kick off all this community stuff. And so that you might have seen their GitHub handles around: Brian Hofstein, Coyote James, and Ashley Rock. And so they've been helping us bootstrap a bunch of these events and planning and just engaging with all of you and developing a lot of cool stuff around events. So first of all, big shout out to them. And then, now that I've introduced them, I'm going to get Brian to talk a little bit about some of the community contributions that we've already had, and to just really emphasize that, like, the more folks want to engage and, contribute, translations and notes and all that stuff, the more we'd love to promote that and get that out. And that includes your own sort of like projects and stuff like that. So if you're doing cool things, we want to hear about it. But without further ado, I'll get Brian to just do a quick review of those community contributions.
Yeah, thank you, Carson. Great to connect with you all here in our On the Mesa time. So we had some great things come through the community the last couple weeks. Just wanted to shout out Chain Guys and Magic Gnome for creating some translations of core Tableland documents into Mandarin and Russian respectively. And then we had Dan Buchholz, who took some epic notes from last week's workshop that Sander put on. And those are available for everyone to take a look at and will be part of like an ongoing archive of artifacts that we can reference as all these different events take off. And then we also had a really great blog post come in from the 222 World team, Mitchell Valentine and David Anderson. They were winners at the ETH Denver hackathon, and they shared a really sweet blog post about why Tableland was so meaningful for what they built there.
Cool, thanks, Brian. And that's pretty awesome. I think we've got some pretty good contributions. I hope more people who want to get stuff out there or just like share what they're working on with the community. Feel free to reach out, ping Brian and that team or anyone here. So the other thing I wanted to go through is just we've got a bunch of external events that are like members of the Tableland core team are either already committed to or are considering attending. And so I'm going to go through a couple of these, but I would also recommend that if there's some events that you think Tableland could contribute positively to or that would benefit from, we'd love to hear about that as well. So we're kind of targeting the sort of like, starting pretty soon, April, right out to as far forward, I think is August right now. So we've got a couple of different events. ETH Portland is coming up, and I'm considering rushing over to that. But I might not be able to make that. But if anyone is in Portland or in the area for ETH Portland, let us know, and we'd be interested in hearing what you're planning on doing, and if you need any support from Tableland for that sort of thing. And then the next one up is Permissionless in Miami, and it looks like Andrew is actually committed to attending that one. And so if anyone else is going to Permissionless in Miami in May, that's May 17th to May 19th, let us know, let Andrew know. Maybe he can buy you a coffee or something while you're there. And we've got more ETH events coming up. ETH SF is coming up in June 20th. We're thinking of attending that. The big one, of course, is NFT NYC that Andrew already mentioned. We've got a chunk of the core team that is going to be there. We would really love to meet up with folks there. Andrew mentioned we're thinking of doing some sort of drink type events. We're definitely going to be doing that, and we've been chatting with a couple of different teams to maybe co-host some events and sponsor those sort of side socials. And that's really just a chance for like that's pure just community building and hanging out and talking about and nerding out about NFT based stuff and metadata and all that. So I really hope that if you're there in the area, you can stop by. It's been a while since I was in NYC, so I'm probably going to do some sightseeing and stuff while I'm there. Happy to do that with some community members as well. And we've got a local as well, so he can show us all the cool New Yorker stuff that we don't know about. Then we've got ETH NYC that's right after that. And I think Andrew and I are considering sticking around for that event. So if anyone else wants to let us know if they're going to be there, that could be really fun. We've got the Metaverse Summit in Paris. So I think Sandra just wants to go to Paris, but hey, if he's going to be there, you might as well meet up there as well. That's in July 16th. And then we've got another event right after that, ETH CC. That's in Paris as well. And I love how these events are all kind of like grouping together so that you can hit as many as you can at once. And then one event that we've done in the past multiple times is HackFS. It's been that's a virtual event. It's been really good for bounties and hackers and things like that. So I highly recommend that, if you can't make it to any of these physical events, HackFS is a really great event that's been, I think this will be the third year running. And that's done by ETH Global, who always puts on a really great virtual event. So we're big fans of that, and hopefully we'll see you at that event. And so that's pretty good. And then I'm going to move on from events and just mention a couple of our sort of more internal events and opportunities that are happening specifically around Tableland. And again, I'm going to hand the mic over to Brian to talk about that stuff because it's really their team that has been spearheading all that cool stuff.
Thanks, Carson. Yeah, I think some of you guys probably have seen some of the messages coming through different channels, but we kind of have a regular cadence now for weekly events. So every other week, we're going to be switching off between workshops and this Twitter Spaces program we're putting on called Creative Decentralization. And these are just two different opportunities, one to go deeper into kind of building on Tableland, and the other more of like a broader Web3 exploration conversation series. So that's going to be happening every other week. We had the first workshop last Friday, and this Friday we have the first episode of Creative Decentralization, and that's going to be live on our Twitter Spaces. And our first guest is none other than Juan Bennett, the founder and CEO of Protocol Labs. So definitely, we hope you can join us for those. And then we'll be doing these fortnightly, every other week town halls. So we really want to like build a cadence with the whole community and just have like a regular flow with each other as we're kind of building out this whole ecosystem together.
Thanks. Yeah, super. Super. Cool. Thanks, Brian and Carson. One thing I was just thinking, I just want to flag two ideas back to those apps from the community and kind of around the events. Like Carson was saying, that HackFS was always a really fun event that we took part in that is just purely virtual hackathon, like many other. One idea that I think Brian and Carson had been talking about that we haven't, scoped or confirmed, but I just want to put into the community brain space is doing a shorter term hackathon, something just internal, like just for Tableland. That would be more like a day or even an afternoon. And so just putting that out there in case people would be interested in hacking with us all, we could push that idea forward. And then the other idea that had been floating around in conversations that I want to put out there is that there's just a lot of opportunities to help us right now that are not necessarily building core technology, or even having to build your own products on Tableland yet. And I mentioned this before around content. But one of the things that we're really trying to do is drive engagement with our Twitter and get more people into Discord. Our goal is actually to get Discord, is to start closing down Discord, so it's a little bit harder for people to join unless they're really participating community members. So we're, like all of you are the early pioneers, and we'll be in here and we'll be making sure that you're part of it. But like right now, we really want to get more people in here before we start kind of making this a more fun and slightly closed community, or what we've been calling it is kind of like a high bar for people to enter, so that we have like really good discussions and really good things being built and ideas being exchanged. And so right now, those two ideas, like how do we drive engagement, how do we drive traffic, how do we get people to join, are things we'd love to source help on. So if you have ideas of, if it's content we need to create, or if you just have like some knowledge on how to do specific kinds of marketing or engagement like that you don't think we're doing, let us know. Lots of opportunities to collaborate with us there, and we'd love your help. So I want to jump into the next section, which is Tableland partnerships. This would typically be given by our colleague Marla. She's out of office this week, so I'm just going to stand in for this town hall. We don't have a big update here. I do want to just share our thinking on partnerships, because we kind of oscillated back and forth about how we would update and bring the community into our partnership thinking. Originally, we had gone, okay, let's just make our partnership pipeline fully open. But then we realized that there are some issues with that, specifically like with what the intent of the other half of the partners, other organizations that are aiming to partner with us, may not want their intentions fully open and may not want us sharing how they're thinking about using Tableland or anything like that. And so we just took those into account and realized maybe we'll keep the pipeline closed until the partnership or the partner really signals that the idea is ready to be, that's it's complete, or they've announced it or whatever. And so instead, what we'll do during the partnerships is share any of those that are moving into the more open realm, and then also just highlighting kind of where we are with partnerships. So what do we mean by partnerships really quickly? Like we're looking for partners right now. These are established organizations that we can partner around either education and learning. So how do you build NFTs? How do you create this next generation of metadata for Web3 with examples in their projects? This could be documentation or tutorials on both sides. This could be actually fully scoped pilots with Tableland, and kind of anything in between, like joint bounties and things like that. We're kind of pursuing a few different ideas here. And right now, I think, let me just review that number real quick. We've got a pipeline of partners. We have 13 projects right now in kind of the earlier stages of development, and some of them are moving into scoped projects, and some of them are just kind of, we're figuring out exactly what we want as the entry point for that partnership. But so today 13, and you can kind of start tracking that number going forward and see how well we progress, and we'll open those up as we can. So now I want to move into Tableland network updates and hand this off to Sander.
Cool. Thanks, Andrew. Thanks all again for being here. I just wanted to step back a little bit and kind of review what we've done so far and sort of our thinking up for next steps. So, as you know, at Ethember, we released this kind of preview, this gateway preview of the network, really trying to get a feel for the UX. And since then, we've kind of moved into deeper planning mode, which we'll talk about a bit more in the next section. But the goal just stepping back, we're trying to create this cloud-like SQL experience on a permissionless user-owned network, and where the ownership and the access control inherits from the target chain. So in our first push, we're looking at the Ethereum ecosystem, but in theory, this should be deployable or supported by any L1. So in doing that, we kind of step back and realize that the two kind of main components, the two problems that we need to solve are around consensus. So we need some kind of total ordering for the table transactions. And then because a lot of the experiences we're trying to create are so tightly coupled with assets, we would prefer to be sort of also not just in the consensus layer, but in the execution layer as well. So you can do things like token gating, that kind of stuff. So in this world, there are infinite ways to do things. So we tried to take a very kind of process-oriented approach to figuring out really the consensus layer step, because that sort of drives everything else. And the two main approaches that we did deep dives on are essentially building our own blockchain. So more or less another L1 using something like Cosmos. And the other is sort of riding on some other layer, whether that's an L1 or an L2, to essentially order the transactions to be the consensus layer. And the past couple weeks, we are now wrapping up an experiment with using L2s, so Arbitrum, Optimism, ZK Sync, and really trying to get an idea of like the costs associated with that. And because most of our target use cases at the moment are sort of, they're geared towards NFTs. So we're not needing, millions of transactions per second, using Tableland to store NFT metadata, mutable metadata that can evolve over time. These are sort of scoped in terms of like how much data is being written and how often. So that's another consideration. And I'm going to, I'll pass it off to Alan just to chat a bit more about some of the findings in that experiment. And
Yeah, it's been really fun working on the L2 stuff, because eventually we kind of want to like expand what we're doing to where it's available all over the place. And we're going to kind of start somewhere, and so that's why it made sense to really dive into the Ethereum layer 2s, which are varied, like in what they can do, and like what sorts of data make sense on them. And as you're diving into that, you also like eventually get into like the Ethereum improvement proposals that are targeting making data from rollups available in a better way on the layer 1. So the experiments that we did involved deploying a contract. So we were doing it on testnet, and then running some transactions, trying to figure out exactly how much things are going to cost, how quickly they're going to go through, and comparing those across. So one of the things we really focused on was rollups. So Arbitrum and Optimism. We're also really excited about, for example, ZK Sync, because they've got something coming up, ZK Porter, which is going to have verifiable data, but it's going to be kind of off-chain, like use less call data, since data availability is going to be handled by that layer 2 itself instead of the L1, but the security is managed by the L1. So, and that's obviously very exciting, just because the nature because Optimism and Arbitrum are very similar layer 2s. But yeah, so that's what we're looking at. I wasn't sure, Sandra, was there anything in particular that you were kind of like wanted to highlight?
No, not really. I know you have this. Well, I think you hit the main points. The write-up you did is awesome. Maybe at some point we could make a post out of it or something. Just really diving into the benefits and trade-offs for each of the existing L2s and thinking about where they're going in terms of data compression and cost reduction. So yeah, thank you. And just to press on another point that Alan touched, so another consideration is, if we were to do our own chain, it's really, obviously, we want to build a permissionless user-owned network, and, if you have your own chain but only 3 validators, it's like, what are you actually accomplishing? So it's quite compelling to think about writing on the permissionless of an existing chain with thousands of validators. And yeah, I think that's a pretty good update there. Let's see. We can talk now a bit about...
Looks like, Sandra, we have I think somebody raised their hand, but the hand went away, so never mind. Oh, no, it's back up. Somebody raised their hand.
Let's save the discussion for the end, if you don't mind, just to keep it.
Got it. Yep, sounds good.
Yeah, we'll do the AML at the end.
Okay, nice. Yeah, so another thing that we started doing last season is just really putting a high focus on dog fooding and just building things really focused on the product. So we're continuing to do that this season. The first thing we're doing the workshop I did the other day is kind of in the same vein. That's going to be like a multi-series thing where I'll kind of go from zero to building up an NFT with mutable metadata. And as we get through this kind of planning phase around the consensus layer, we'll start executing on other features around access control, and we'll be able to quickly build that stuff into there. But I'm going to call on Joe to give just a little preview of some of the other apps we're building this season.
Hey, yeah, thanks, Sander. Yeah, I've had the pleasure of getting to work on some of the example apps that we're using both internally and just as demonstrations for people. It's been fun kind of trying to build something that's both interesting but also serves as an example for people to understand how Tableland works. So far, we have a simple to-do app, we have a loot game, and we have a terminal interface that lets you type commands at the Tableland. And this season, we're working on coming up with a Twitter clone that will be, I think it'll be an awesome way to demonstrate how Tableland can be used simply to build these sort of owned accounts within the Web3 ecosystem. And we also have a wallet-based messaging app that'll let you sort of send messages between wallets. And we have a game of chess, which should be pretty fun to build both for the UI and the Tableland. The game of chess specifically will start to integrate some of the access control stuff we're working on right now. So yeah, very excited for all that stuff coming down the pipeline.
Sweet, thank you, Joe.
Yeah,
I'm gonna have to order a basic chess moves book so I can.
Yeah, we should start some Friday afternoon chess games.
Yeah. All right, I think that's pretty good for that section. I'll pass it off to 80, I believe, to talk about some org updates.
Cool. Hey everyone, this is 80. At the beginning, Andrew had mentioned that we have a long-term plan and roadmap, and we're going to share some more details about that in a couple of weeks. But what I wanted to kind of highlight is, although we do have this long-term plan that gets us, all the way to the middle of next year, we kind of divide and conquer that long-term plan into smaller pieces, which we call seasons. And seasons are just kind of how we execute on our work, typically in these 12-week sections. So we're about 4 weeks into the current seasons. So I just wanted to maybe highlight, a couple of things that Sandra mentioned around, L1 and L2 research, looking at roll-ups, those options and trade-offs, consensus algorithms. So we have a bunch of things that will be shipping in 2 weeks, which will be our first milestone. So we have a milestone every 6 weeks. And at those milestones, we do a big review and we kind of summarize the current state of Tableland, and then we share that out with the community. So we'll go into a lot more detail there in a couple of weeks at the next town hall. But I also want to just say that, part of what's so enjoyable about working on Tableland is that we're really approaching this from first principles. And that's important because we are building for the long term. And although, sometimes long-term plans and seasons and executions can be boring, it's actually really like a fundamental part of the Tableland equation to make sure that, we're not just kind of building something that'll kind of work today, but we're really trying to look out, what is the future? Is it building on L1s? Is it building on L2s? Where do we expect the bulk of transactions to be happening and cross-chain support and everything? So it's very, very exciting. That's all I'm going to say right now. I'll save more for a couple weeks.
Okay, cool. All right, so yeah, like AD said, well, thanks both of you for your updates. And then, like AD said, we'll have a lot more sort of meat to this sandwich in 2 weeks around our planning and exactly how we're doing that, and lots of different opportunities to get involved with core development when that comes out too. So with all of that said, I think let's open it up to the AMA, and if people want to just go ahead and raise their hand, if you haven't done this before, if you just are in the Mesa, you can look down at the bottom of your screen and there's a little hand. You should be able to use that to raise your hand. Although mine looks different because I'm a speaker, so I hope yours looks like that. So anyway, there should be a button there to raise your hand. There was one already, but just moved it over to the Discord channel to ask the question. And that question was, is Polkadot in the cards for the future? And so I think this question could be broken down a few different ways about if Tableland could be used by Polkadot in the future, if Tableland will run directly on Polkadot in the future. And I wanted to hand this back over to Sander, maybe to dig into some different angles to the answer there.
Yeah, sounds good. So we did look some at Polkadot. Ignacio spearheaded some research into just what's possible today with some of the blockchain building tooling. So Polkadot, Cosmos, Avalanche SDK. And in our research there, really what we're looking for was does it make sense to go down that path and just have a high level view of the tooling there. Honestly, we didn't build anything with Polkadot. We did build some examples. Well, Ignacio built some examples with Cosmos and also with the Avalanche SDK. So do we want to be a Cosmos chain or an Avalanche subnet? And the Polkadot, the sort of the conceptually is quite similar to those, but it didn't seem like there was any massive compelling reason over Cosmos, which has been around for a long time and has the SDK is incredible. I don't know if anyone else wants to touch on that. Feel free to jump in.
Yeah, I can add something extra. First, hi, my name is Ignacio. I'm a backend engineer. I just wanted to add to what Sander said that there's a lot of room in the future to consider deploying Tableland to multiple chains, and on each chain, the way we solve consensus and data availability will be different. So, apart from the right technical approach for the first chain that we will support, it's also consider which chain might be the right one regarding the community and the existing ecosystem. And that's because Tableland is something that we want to be composable with other assets and things that exist in these ecosystems. So I think we will probably consider deploying Tableland to other chains in the future. So this, like whatever decision we do today regarding starting with Ethereum or any other, doesn't mean that we completely discarded existing in our chains.
Yeah, that's a great point. Yeah, just I'll double press on wanting to sort of build for in the way that chain is going. So like with Ethereum, it seems that this is the year of L2s, and the leaders in that community have this modular blockchain kind of vision. So whatever we do, we don't want to necessarily go against the grain of that vision. It's a bit of a dance though, because a lot of this stuff isn't fully realized. So, but we also have the opportunity to kind of build along with, if we end up going in the Ethereum ecosystem using L2s for consensus, then we have an opportunity to kind of be early with those things and get some high touch help from those teams. Anyway, now I'm just rambling.
Yeah, I wanted to add something extra. Even if we start with Ethereum or a particular chain, there's even the possibility that the way that we solve the technical challenges involve other chains. Maybe that's worth another discussion, but like today we are talking about L2s for solving most of our technical challenges. But there's like in this space like a bleeding edge approach of trying to build more modular solutions for different parts of the technical challenges, mainly separating consensus from data availability. That's a big one that now there are a lot of projects building specialized solutions for each problem. So it is very important to separate like the main ecosystem from which we will deploy the first Tableland world from the technical solution that might involve maybe multiple chains.
Totally.
Great, thanks. That's really good answer to all that. Good discussion, good question, kicking that off. Any other questions out there that we could jump into? If not, we could call this town hall a wrap. I think it was a really nice discussion there, and hopefully we can keep these going and keep growing them. And yeah, we'd love your help.
Cool. Thanks, everyone.
Thanks all.